finished up a couple of days testing, something we've been looking to do for a long time on some WP Pro componentry, some aftermarket parts from WP available over the counter, also used by a bunch of factory guys around the world. We're here at Steve Robertson's property with some amazing trails, and also with Miller Mendham, who's done a bunch of testing for us, actually did some work for us for quite some time as well, mate, but Miller's a pretty handy racer. The objective being to test some of this componentry. Obviously, had the benefit of a really cool kind of grass track up there. Smooth third, fourth gear sort of thing, one with a few supercrossy style jumps, Robbo, down there a little bit. And then also the access to the bush that we've got close here. So, and the reason we've got these two guys involved is because I'm just a very average guy, rider, clubbing level guy, sort of 88 kilograms, whereas you've got Miller as 80, Robbo at 95 on the day where but to get an all-round picture. So yeah, first of all, boys, just a quick one. What was your take out of the experience the last couple of days? Really interesting, huh?
Mate, I think we've done a lot of different varieties, so we've really been lucky with the conditions too. No dust, unreal grip. We started with these bikes in stock trim. These new forks and shock are great, compared to the models before. And then also lucky enough to have stealth from on-point suspension to set us up.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about testing suspension is you've got to have like a good base platform, and we had two identical Husqvarna 350s. Everything's the same, so one's got an upgraded package and one's got a dead stock package.
Well, yeah, I think that comparing apples with apples is really important, right? So yes, we could have actually, swung in and brought the XPLOR Pro 7500 cartridge kit fork, fitted it into the bike, gone out, and then fitted it back, and then we could have done the same with the shock bladder kit. But the way we did is we just set two bikes up, as you say, Miller, identical. So identical tyres, Dunlop floaters, some MX-34s. We made sure we got the sag identical on them. We ran 4.6 spring rates, which is standard in these bikes. But because we're at slightly at the upper end of that range, we went from a 45 to a 48 shock spring, and then just sort of found some middle ground. All importantly, set everything like handlebars, because even bars being rolled forward can affect the way. The weight bias.
Tyre pressure is exactly the same too.
Tyre pressures are. So we've made the point, right? So we spent a lot of time and energy and effort to get two bikes that were otherwise similar, which essentially isolates the differences that we're feeling in the.
Yeah.
So boys, let's, instead of just going, how about the fork, how about the shock, let's kind of talk it through situationally, right? So, like you say, Robbo, we had some really cool variety of terrain. So I'll throw to you, Miller, because you look bloody good going around that grass track up there, mate, just railing the shit out of that.
Yeah.
But look, you have a 7500 kit in your own bike as well.
Yeah.
Okay. You've also got a track shock, so you're a sport little bastard. So in a lot of ways too, this test is not only about saying what those pro components are, but also sort of like weighing up the new standard closed cartridge fork, which has come out in the 24 model KTM Husky enduro bikes onward. What's your take out? Let's first of all go up there where it's pretty fast and you're throwing it in, and I know you ride a lot of front brakes, so you're very mindful coming into corners about what the fork's doing.
Yeah, especially like with this test, these guys are both bigger than I am, so going into it, I had to deal with a slightly stiffer package. It's nothing crazy, but just a little bit stiffer. And the way I'm riding, I'm always either kind of at the back or I'm right up front, so I'm very front end feel kind of guy. And I've always been that way. So going straight onto this grass track, I was a little bit cut in, and it felt like a little special test at a race day, to be completely honest. So going into it, I was really worried that the front end was going to be everywhere, because I didn't do that many hours on my...
On which bike?
On the stock forks.
Yes.
Because I didn't do that many hours. I literally did 2 hours of bedding the engine in and send stuff away and got it all switched up on my own bike. So I didn't have much experience on those. I went out first on the stock stuff. I was, to be honest, pleasantly really surprised. Like, I found it was pretty good already. I even had to check like the caps, and I got off that bike, got onto the 7500, and I noticed the same kind of thing which I noticed in my own bike. I can just hit bumps a little bit quicker, and I've got just more confidence and more grip in the front end. I wasn't too stressed about what the back end was doing on that grass track, because like I said, I'm sitting down almost on that track. So I'm really worried about where the front end's going. So I was pretty focused on that.
And I remember you also saying you had the more trust in it. You leant with the bike, so rather than like tipping down into ruts, you're actually leaning with.
He leans right in and really rails those corners.
Yeah.
His entry speed is super fast.
So it's like corner of the seat, everything's over, but I've got the confidence to tip my head into that rut to get the lean angle and carry the speed as well. And to be honest, like, I was surprised to be able to do that on stock forks, and then I got onto the 7500s, and I was literally felt like I was going probably 3, 4, 5 k's an hour through the apex faster every corner. Which adds up big time.
Because what, in your mind, the compliance, the fact it just gave you the trust to do that, the confidence?
And there's one particular corner where you kind of come over the ridge, there's a bump, and you sit seated and there's another bump, and I was able to just throw it in on the 7500s, whereas on the stock front end, off that first bump, it would hold up and then it would blow through a little bit. And I was like, well, I was kind of wanting to, it didn't want to dive, but it just wanted to just oversteer and slide.
Yes.
So I was a little bit concerned there, but yeah, 7500s, I was just tracking.
All right. Robert, what about your experience? Again, we're talking about this fast grass track up here, mate, with slotting into nice little ruts.
Yeah, it's great. So once we got that bedded in, the lines were cut, you know, it's when we could start pushing these bikes. Then things sort of started to separate a bit, I guess. Starting on the stock one, it's pretty impressive. Like we're saying how good these forks are now. A little bit faster. It was starting to just let go on some of the corners. I ride a lot different to Miller. I'm more weight the outside peg, old school, and I don't accelerate as hard as him. So I actually really smooth all the way around. I don't accelerate as hard. So I found that would not give me as much confidence as the kitted bike. That felt 20 mil lower at the front.
The kitted
bike.
Yep.
The stock one, it felt like it was sitting up 20 mil at the front. I think we all felt the same.
Yeah, and that's got something to do with the pressure spring we've talked to Stella about. Yeah.
And Stella just said, you know, it's the different things, the different springs that are in there. With a little compressor spring, it just drops and gives that compliance on the smaller bumps.
The one thing that I really, now that you just mentioned that, lower in the front, was I felt I could carry so much more speed and much more confidence through a more shallow rut.
Yep.
With the 7500.
Without thinking you're gonna.
Yeah. Compared to the stock stuff, I was having to, you know, drop it down a bit, stay a bit more vertical.
Yeah.
Whereas with the 7500s, I just throw it into a rut that's like 50, 60.
Yeah. Like I remember having the conversation out there. The takeout was that the standard fork, the closed, cartridge fork, actually the stock one, held up pretty damn well in the stroke. But then it came to a point where it actually dived, and you can see because that sort of track's all about braking, right? Corner entry, confidence, and speed, and on the pick. So as much as it sort of held up in its stroke, like the big thing for me on that, I was going nowhere near as fast as you guys, but was the edge grip, right? So there was a couple of where you had like a double apex, sort of more grass tracky sort of thing, and you're just on the edge of the tyre, and I just felt like I was cranked over another 5 degrees. I'm like, how is this possible? Exactly the same tyres, exactly the same fitted new tyres, and I think it was just that small bump compliance. So that would be both the fork and the bladder kit in the shock that just took that. And
it's 100%. It just rails in a perfect arc. Yeah. You know, it's not leaps and bounds better. It's still a good bike stock, but it is another 20% better. Like
it's weird, right? Because when you put suspension in a bike, you think about
you all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. You think about the way it takes hits, but you don't think about I can brake low, I can brake with more confidence, I can brake tipped over further, I can do all these other things, I can actually carry more corner speed, I can change line mid-corner easier. All these kind of knock-on benefits of the thing. And as you said, I think, Robbo, the faster you get, the more the differential becomes obvious between the standard stuff and the kitted.
There was a really tight corner. You come down the hill, left hand had a root in the middle. I think there was a log after. Coming into that in the stock stuff, I had to stay seated into it, and it would kind of blow through on the little root, and then it would rebound in. I'd get grip. Yeah. Whereas on the 7500s, I was standing all the way to the apex, let the front end hit it, and then I'd sit in and just go.
Yeah. And we had a few of the boys are over there commentating because we were trail riding with a bunch of the boys out here and testing a whole lot of stuff. But it was interesting that when you're really hard on the picks, both of you guys going into the corner, you could actually see the front dive a bit more with the standard stuff once it blew through that original holder. And then that was when it was kind of like, it was good, but that's where, to me, just the sure-footedness and the fact that I think the first takeout for me was there was less hobby horsing, right? Yeah. So I was braking more confidently because the front end wasn't unweighting. I could get on the gas earlier because I didn't have to wait for it to stop doing that. It was just, and that's so confidence inspiring. And I haven't been riding much of late, and the big thing that also came out of was like how much less it fatigued me. That blew my mind how different.
Yeah. Only having 3 laps. We were both puffing.
Yeah, so I was doing a bit
after the
back.
Oh, yeah. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
It was just beat you up that bit more.
Yeah. All right, so that's grass track down. I think we sort of covered off on that. And probably we weren't focusing much on, like I said, it was all about corner entry, so we're thinking more about the fork there than the shock.
Sorry, that one deep rut that kind of went downhill, if we're just about to chat about the bladder, it kind of had a few deep accelerations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was coming out of there.
Yeah, that's my grind.
Stock on, I kind of like get bounced around a little bit, and I could feel the rear end hit the side walls of the rut.
Yep.
And it was a bit like it throw the balance around a bit. On the one with the bladder, it would take those they're not very deep, but they're super square lip. And it would just take them and just track, and I'd be out.
And there's little differences from every corner around a whole lap, and the fatigue, that just blew my mind. That was the biggest takeaway probably.
It's quite technical, a lot of turns, like you're really testing that, weren't we? There's no straights on that track, was there? So it's really left, right, left. So
All right, let's just throw a couple of jumps in the mix. Now, you threw us. I know you knocked the tops off some of these things that your 17-year-old son Henry's down there ripping into. It's almost supercrossy. So you knocked the tops off them, and you went down jumping a little bit. There's a lot more versatility. There's a lot more safety, giving margin in terms of the both ends of the bike probably, or particularly the fork actually absorbing those big jump landings that they're not kind of designed for as an enduro fork. What was your take at? Because Miller, you were doing some little combos down there, mate, little rhythm sections.
So yeah, there was a section where it's a bit of a bigger double and then it leads into 2 smaller doubles. And I'd go off that, I'd land, I'd give a little pump, and I would go pretty much no throttle. By the end of it, I was going pretty deep off this first one, and one time I pretty much cased the triple. I wasn't even over jumping a double, it was casing a triple.
Yep.
And the bottom wasn't like smack and like, oh, that hurt. It just took the rebound. I wasn't up or either side.
Yep.
I was just over and into the next corner.
Yep.
In my head, I was like, oh, that was a bit deep.
It's harder to get it knocked offline or unsettled, right?
Yeah, just 7,500.
But it composes itself, right? So you're ready for the next obstacle, the next corner, the next breaking point, right? That was pretty.
So I think for me, anybody that's jumped a stand enduro bike, they're a little bit bouncy because they're so soft. They're not the motocross flat feel. But where the benefit comes is the bottoming resistance in the kitted bike. Those 7500s, you can, like a cone valve does, you can really slap the front in, and there's no metal, there's no bottoming. So, I think for me, you're not really pushing these things like you would a motocross bike, but you can still definitely do it. It still can be done. We've been ripping around it on and off for 2 days, and it's fine.
Well, talking about jumps, why don't we move on to some of that awesome, fast, what do you call it, fire road with big ass erosion mounds, and you said, which you can hit it 4th gear full noise sometimes. So it was pretty cool, just knowing that occasionally the landing came back at you, and I got more and more confidence just hitting those things with gay abandon, shall we say. You know what I mean? It was like, wow. But I think both bikes amazed me how good they were, right? I really wasn't bottoming. I know you guys probably were.
It's not too bad. Like, they were pretty good, really. Even the ones that were dug out, not real steep erosion ups, they're really well formed. You can, both bikes, you could land on the gas and into them, 4th gear.
And look, what we sort of haven't said is that, the kitted bike, you also have the option of spring preload. I think you got 6 or 8 mil or something like that. I think one turns 1 mil, which is, according to Stell, quite significant. Whereas you don't have, the external preload adjustment on the standard bike, but there is now a component you can fit for, I think, $500. You can fit those preload adjusters, which we're going to have a crack at.
The mainspring or the?
No, which adjusts actually the pressure spring. So rather you're preloading the pressure spring, sits in the cartridge above the base valve, not actually on the mainspring. So it's a more, I guess, subtle adjustment of chassis back and forward. So that's one difference, and it's kind of cool that the 7500 kit gives you that option, for all intents and purposes, it's a cone valve fork, right? I think save for the stanchion being a little bit more, upper stanchion being a little bit more flexy, the lugs being slightly different to, what a full-blown, cone valve motocross fork.
Yeah, this is something that I tested a little bit. So it was the 7500 versus the 7548, which is the full cone valve.
More motocross oriented, yes.
And between the triple clamps and the seal holder, the 7548s are a complete cylinder, whereas the stock outer, which is what you would get with the 7500 kit, is gets skinnier and then gets fatter again.
Yeah.
Which allows for a bit more flex and on the rake and a bit, I guess, deflection absorption maybe.
Yep.
The lugs, they're not billet, so I guess a bit more flex as well.
Compliance, you could call it. Yeah.
It would take those diagonal routes a bit better.
Yeah.
They're just so rigid and just out there.
Hey, and you're not the only one. There's word on the street. There's some factory guys that are actually mixing and matching some slightly more flexible, stanchions now. So look, what we haven't talked about now is we found. Look, he said, no, we need some snotty stuff. So you found some, right? So we had this really cool little goat trail, I would say. It's sort of second and third gear. Yeah, very rocky. So a much different experience, right?
I guess we're getting more enduro, so that's what these things are designed for. Ultimately. So we've done the grass track and jumps, and we had a great time, and it all worked well. So I think the stock bike with the correct spring rate and everything set up, I reckon is great. Like for any average rider not wanting to push the limits, it's just a great trail rider. This is more than enough, I think.
Better balance and not dive, right?
Yeah, but compared to the previous models, this is leaps and bounds better. There's a little bit more precision, like when Stell talks about getting that angle and the steering right, because they're different chassis. The bikes just really start to separate if you're a faster rider and you want to push the limits and you just want to hit those rocks, the snotty stuff. That just doesn't deflect in the front like these do. It's not terrible, that is just like everything we're doing, it's just another 20% better.
It comes back to what you're saying
The
about.
faster you go, the better.
Yeah, exactly. The faster,
Yeah.
the bigger the differential.
Yeah.
Millsy, you went through there, and first time round, and it was sort of like it was pretty hard to know where the track was going. And, had little rolls, babysit the whole time, so it was, and it got better as we sort of like, stomped it a bit. But you said originally, I can't feel that much difference in there. Did you after a while?
The big difference I noticed with the 7500s was that when it did deflect, it re-gripped and came back straight, and it was good again.
To pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with the stock fork, you would kind of deflect.
You get a couple of goes till you get it back.
It'd be walking, I guess.
Yeah.
Out of, away from you. So
Fatigue again. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So as I was like running through that section a few times, a bit more clear, I could hit stuff faster, and then when it did kick, it'd kick and then it'd come back.
Yeah.
And
it's a constant thing again. Like when we're hitting, there's lots of little shoot like logs with rocks. There's quite rocky in sections. You could just ride through it.
Yeah, you can just look through it and you just go. And I feel like
and you have to double think on the standard. I'll just better square that up and go through it.
The standard bike goes up and down more, whereas with the 7500s and the Bladder Kit, it just wants to go forward.
Yeah, so up and down it's taking the pressure off the front, and it gets a little bit. Yeah.
And like the back end gets a bit unweighted. And
Yeah, it's subtle. I thought the biggest thing for me, the standout in that snotty, rocky stuff, where you're hitting tree roots and as you say, roots on an angle and stuff is like, cool. I thought the standard stuff was really good actually. I really did, and I was surprised how good it was in there because it's it sits up in its stroke, much more than, and that was really snotty. I was going kind of slow through there because, I was kind of slow. Let's just say that way. But I found, when I started, getting used to the track a little bit and stepping it up a little bit, the compliance was a lot different. And I think, when I started pushing beyond my boundaries, I'm like, well, that shouldn't have been a boundary. It was on the other bike. Okay, I can go a little bit faster now. But it just felt it was composed. It felt like there was just that extra safety margin again. And the biggest thing for me is I think that we were talking about progression before, and okay, what does that mean? It's plush on the little stuff, but it still ramps up as you come through the stroke
on the
to give you that bottoming resistance. So you hit that rock seam and you jump flat, and so that was pretty impressive, but not as big a difference as I think we found on the grass track. And again, I was really surprised on the erosion mounts how good the standard bike was. Yeah.
There was a long left hand on that motocross track. Over the hill, come down, it gets really tight.
Yeah.
And I'm like pretty heavily trail braking now. I'm sitting down and it's pretty much all on the front. Like obviously all your weight's on there. It's off camber and you're looking to go across it. There's a bit of a rut there, but there's not heaps. On the standard stuff, it would hold up and then when it would go, it would blow through and it would kind of knife and I'd be relying on the clutch and just the motor to pull me out of that deep.
Like sort of send you in a different direction.
It's like if you go into a sand corner and you're unbalanced, like you're just throwing it in. Whereas with the 7500s, I could trail brake and it was pretty consistently getting more weighted, and I'd be out of there. Pretty smooth arc.
You definitely see it with your riding style because you're so fast and aggressive. If it's not pulling you around neatly,
like
it'll spit you out and hang on, I didn't. It just doesn't work.
And my exit line, if you were to say the apex is here and your exit's here, I feel like I was within 200 mil on the 7500s, whereas I was using all the track with that stock bike.
So what do we take out of it, boys? Like 2 years ago, you've got an open cartridge fork, you've got to put a 6500 cartridge XPLOR Pro cartridge kit in it to make it a closed cartridge, and that costs you $2,000. Now you got a higher platform, a closed cartridge fork to start with that comes in the bike, which can be modified and tweaked and fine-tuned, but it's pretty damn good. And then for $2,500 plus springs if you need them, you've now got top of the pops. You got the cone valve fork, right? And essentially you do, So it's suddenly made what used to be a $5,000 exercise like a $2,500 exercise, and which in my mind, like, unless I'm a really serious guy, I'm not going to go pay $5,000 for a pair of forks.
Yeah, that's right.
But $2,500 if I understand the differences that we've been sort of talking about today, and they're pretty significant, right?
They are, yeah.
Is $2,500 a good spend?
100%. So, as we get older and a bit slower, like you still want to have, suspension that will hold up when we need to do it. So I'd be buying it every day of the week. Like it's safer, it's more direct, and it's a little bit of money, but I think it's 100% worth it. I think it's 20-25% gain minimum, over of performance over a stock bike.
Well, it's kind of a dumb question because both of you guys have spent the money. Well, I don't know if you paid full freight, but you've done it, right?
But once you've got it, it's very hard to go back. But then saying they're 100% better these forks than the previous model anyway. So you're already better than what you were on your 23 and 22 models. But get your spring race right, get still with these guys to set you up. Often these stock bikes, and it's unbelievable still, like
I
for a
think-
trail rider. But
Yeah, I think
he's level.
My answer's already given. Like, I'm running the 7500 kit with a track shock in my race bike, so I was pretty much
You're
looking,
spoiled.
I was,
Yeah.
I was looking for what was like the best thing, and I found that to be the 7500s in the front, and that's what I'm running. So
Yeah.
there's your answer.
And I guess 2 weeks, the benefit of this, all you're doing is pulling out the old stuff, sliding in. You're not buying new stuff. You can take it with you to the next bike. So it's not a throwaway thing once you've sold, and WP give you that option. So they've done a really good job supplying that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think available over the counter too, and it's also nice for a lot of people to be able to go, like, I'm running the same stuff that Daniel Milner or, you know, Chucky Sanders or these guys, and, you know, and very close to the fork, I guess, that, you know, a lot of the, you know, motocross and supercross guys around the world, factory guys are running.
The other thing I reckon as well, that's definitely worth like a bit of a spend, is the Bladder Kit.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, like,
Well, it's $200, $215, yeah.
dude,
Yep.
if it's literally just the safety factor of being able to hit a square lip that you don't know is there, and it just takes it.
Yeah.
Because it might give you a little kick, but it's
Yeah.
not like extending it.
And look, what we didn't say is, like, you know, we're doing a lot of stopping and starting today, photography, video and whatever, but if when you know, that original shock does start fading a little bit when the oil gets hot, that's, I think, another big benefit. We forgot to mention about the Bladder Kit.
Complements the forks, doesn't it? They sort of go hand in hand. If you're going that with the forks, you'd be going the Bladder Kit as well.
Yeah.
They work together well.
So, boys, been a really cool experience. Thanks again, Robert, for
No worries.
the hospitality, mate. It's been awesome riding out of this man shed, and, you know, some awesome training. We're really lucked into the weather and the train. It's been an exercise we've been trying to do for quite a while, and yeah, I'm really stoked on being able to now get my head around the differences. And I suppose what you have to say is also, like, this is just, even without the benefit of, like, somebody coming in and matching springs to your weight and your valving and your riding style, you know, so we just basically, they're the base differences in the base settings. Yeah, takeaway for me was, you know, the composure, the safety, the fact that, you know, like, I could hit things with more confidence, with less stress, and be less fatigued at the end of the day. That was huge.
I'd say my takeaway was, I realised you could be pretty similar for your 1 lap sprint on both bikes, but what about your 7th lap, your 8th lap? I reckon that's where that difference, the fall off on the stock bike, because you're getting beat up more front and back, you're having to work harder to get it where you want it to go. With the 7500 kit and the Bladder shock, you're going to stay faster for longer, which means you're safer.
Well, unfortunately, the FE350 with the kit and stuff in is going off home to somebody else, so just going to have to play catch up with you guys at some point and see if I can get myself one. But no, it's been awesome. Thanks heaps, guys. It's been a really good exercise.
Awesome.
All good.
Thanks
Cheers. Thanks for coming. It's good.